So behind every great marketing campaign, there's a few key ingredients. First of all, you're using, in terms of a new audience that we're talking about, you want to use the right language and visual style. So it's super important, especially with gaming, that you speak their language, you use the right sort of terminology, but without going overboard. Second, funnel structure and intent-based platform selection. We've talked a little bit about intent-based platform selection, but I'm going to go into even more detail about it. And then funnel structure is sort of it's a bit of a key thing. So tons of you are going to be comfortable with marketing funnels. I'm not going to explain what a marketing funnel is to you, but I will take you through sort of an approach, a way that you can think about the funnel that I think really helps. And then finally, clear objectives and relevant KPIs for each activation, as well as the overall campaign. So a big campaign or even a small campaign will have multiple components. Make sure for each component that you're measuring the right thing. And then what is the overall goal? You need to have, basically have extremely key KPIs. Okay, so let's sort of get stuck into it. So, all right, this is the tough one. And this is kind of going back to that PSP example from the beginning. This is where people can struggle. And it's not because, what it is because of is because gamers are extremely usually smart and they can smell marketing a mile away. And so if you try and be too in with the gamers, you will look bad if it's disingenuous, they can tell. So on the other hand, if you don't do anything to try and speak the same language as them and you just talk to them extremely plainly, this is our product, this is what our product does, you don't seem relevant, you're not part of the culture. And as many of us know, the key to great marketing is specificity, right? So if you can talk to somebody in a really specific way, then you're going to be more successful. But yeah, you need to be able to sort of balance these two things that are at odds with each other. And then finally, you have to do your homework. There's not really any substitute for knowing about this stuff. So put in the work, do your due diligence. And remember that when I say gamers as well, I'm talking about 9 potential different personas that you have to select. So if you have someone on your team who's one of those personas, or you can hire someone who's one of those personas, it puts you in a really great place. For example, I'm fortunate enough that in my team at Webprofits, all of the people I work with are gamers. We have a bunch of different kinds of interests across the gaming, across genres and different sort of interactions with that culture. And so it's really useful, actually, when we come up against a marketing campaign, we can identify that one of us is more like one of the personas, and you can start to actually use real life insights. Someone can just sit there and tell you if your idea is bad, and you have to trust them. So, or just hire an intern or something who's Gen Z and they can tell you if what you're doing is bad. I don't know. But think about this. This is really important. So overall, what I've found overwhelmingly is that gamers prefer to hear from gamers. Again, I'm generalizing a little bit here because there are 9 personas, but the entire games industry is just full of examples of gamers trusting each other more than they trust brands. And that's because they're a community of enthusiasts and they trust the opinions of their peers, and getting into games is reliant on hearing from other people. You get into games because you're told about them from your friends, for example. All the most successful games are the most streamed games. That's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. So you got me there, but all the most successful peripherals are the best reviewed. That's not the case for every industry, by the way. You would think that always the best products would be the most successful, but it's not always the case. In gaming, this is the case, and it's because there's such a huge feedback loop within the community. And finally, the most successful gaming brands have a strong community of supporters. So like I was saying, and I've got this example, sorry, on the right. I don't know what I did to deserve this, but I just get targeted with a Dark Souls based article every week forever, since Dark Souls came out 10 years ago. And I want to be off that list. I don't know. I love that game, but I want to be off the list. But my point is, someone is publishing an article about Dark Souls every week. And that's just because they like it. This isn't a paid deal. This isn't, has nothing to do with a brand paying for these sort of articles. It's just gamers like to talk about games and they want to ponder them. So if you make something that they want to talk about, you'll be successful. So I want to talk about social proof. This is the main thing I was just touching on there. but you can tap into social proof from a marketing perspective without needing to have a mind-blowingly, I don't know, landscape-changing game like Dark Souls or a product, right? Because we're not just talking about game. There are many of you here who are not game publishers. So how do you actually harness the power of social proof? Well, the good news is that there's actually tons of gamers everywhere. And so you just have to tap into them and talk to them and utilize them. So one way you can do this is through influencers, which I got a comment on this in the chat just before. Reviews are super important, especially in like the accessory space. Publications, like we just mentioned, forums and online communities. These are all extremely useful. And a lot of these places, you can just go and talk to people for free. Like you just go in and talk to your target market and they will love to talk to you and have input. It's like an amazing thing that you can do. And I'll show you in a moment how we harness that for campaigns. I just wanted to mention that under the banner of influencers, I would include streamers, right? People who stream, gaming personalities, so not necessarily streamers, but people who are in the gaming community at large, and pro gamers as well, like so esports players. These guys all make for really excellent influencers. And so I'm about to show you an example, going back to our Logitech G color collection example, is that we decided to put our money where our mouth was and go, okay, well, if we believe, right, if we truly believe that social proof is important, if we truly believe that gamers want to hear from other gamers, then surely if we use influencers in our paid advertisements, so not an influencer campaign where you pay an influencer, you send them product, and then they talk about it on their organic channels, like literally just putting an influencer in your ad and then compare it to the ad that doesn't have an influencer, we found that between these approaches, we were able to increase our click-through rate, which was our key metric for engagement, remember, by 250%, which was unbelievable at the time. And especially in the markets that we were doing at 2.49%, which you can see over here, this is in the UK, is quite good in that auction at that time that we were running it. It was well above average. And so that just goes to show that you can use it. They prefer for the streamer to talk about why your products are good or why your game is good than for you to say it, because of course you're going to say that it's good, right? They don't trust you. Well, they don't trust you as much is maybe a nicer way of putting it. Okay, so how can you actually harness this? This would take an extremely long time to go into, and this is a 50-minute case study that I'm about to recommend to you. But Andreessen Horowitz and the team behind the game Spellbreak were able to get over 600,000 pre-alpha registrations for their game, basically without anybody knowing about the studio beforehand. And the way that they did it was using communal gaming spaces like Discord and YouTube and Reddit and and I think Imgur as well. And using just those platforms, they're able to drive like a super huge response and get lots of people excited for the game. And it's a really fascinating case study. I wish I had more time to cover it with you, but it's a great example of not even having very many resources and driving a huge amount of success. My only little thing I would say before you get into it is that they do use the term going viral a lot. And as a marketer, it makes me shudder every time I hear someone say go viral. But in their defense, they actually did go viral. Like they actually found a way to make something go viral. So I will, on my LinkedIn after this, I'll post about this and I'll send a link and you guys can go and look at it. But it's worth the time. Strongly recommend. Okay, let's talk about funnels. So this is a very boring looking slide. So you're just going to have to pay attention to what I'm saying. I think maybe I've done that on purpose. So look, like I mentioned before, you guys know what funnels are. Most of you do anyway, I'm sure of it. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, you need to use a funnel. You should know that, right? And you should know, I've put some examples on here of like different things that, different platforms and where they fit into different stages of the funnel. Maybe some of these are arguable, but I would say that these are just around the right sort of thing. The funnel is obviously, it's nice to put it into nice, tangible colored blocks, but it's actually much less tangible than this. And there things really happen upon ranges. And that's why I've included this intent scale on the right. So I mentioned this before. I really want to send this point home. If there's like one of the main things that you take away, intent on the platform is like the most important thing to think about. And when you're trying to craft a consumer journey that goes through, a number of multiple platforms, it's very important to think, what is this person experiencing? What is their level of intent when they see this billboard, right? What are they thinking when they see it? Are they going to do the action? Are they just going to get their phone out straight away? Maybe not. Maybe they're in their car or something or whatever. Just think through all of these details, because where they are and what they're doing, we're in a place now where you can sort of be online anywhere. And so, there are lots of ways to tap into this intent in out of home spaces. But it's also, about making sure that there's good follow through. So for example, in my experience with in the games industry, I know pretty much every company I've come into contact with has a huge emphasis on awareness, and they're really good at generating awareness and making killer awareness campaigns. But then they fall short when it comes to channeling those awareness campaigns into actual sales or into actual conversions. So if you think back to the metaverse, for example, like this is it's new, right? But there is going to be no other industry basically where that's part of the consumer journey outside of gaming, right? Those people in games are going to be the ones who experience those ads. So like this needs to be an idea of what you're supposed to do after it, right? And that's what I like to do, I suppose. So that's me and my team are sort of all about connecting these like big brand campaigns and these big ideas and these audiences that we want to target, and figuring out, okay, well, like where are we? Yes, let's do this, but then how do we get to the end goal? Like the business objective is normally sales, even for big brand campaigns, I find. And so it's good to figure out how you're going to navigate that. So for example, if someone does see your billboard and they search you, what's showing up on search? Like what's the first thing that shows up? Think about these kinds of things. I'll take you through a quick example, which I said that I would touch on, and I will. Marc Jacobs. So let's think back to that example of Marc Jacobs. They had the Animal Crossing activation, right? They got in front of a new audience. It was super popular. What if you wanted to, like in theory, because they didn't actually do this, but what if you wanted to make that into a full campaign? How would you do it, right? So off the top of my head, well, not really, because I've pre-prepared a slide, but still. Top of funnel, metaverse activation, social media and PR attention. This is what they actually did, right? So heaps of people found out about them due to their Animal Crossing play that they made. So then what I would do is I would find fans of Animal Crossing on social media. I've got TikTok and Instagram there, but you could use tons of different platforms to do this. It's possible to target fans of Animal Crossing on lots of things. So do it. Then you show the real life items alongside the counterparts that they made for the game, and you sort of like clinch that connection between the brands. Then you would think about remarketing to people, would be the next thing, who engage across those ads across all of your ad networks. And you would also want to make sure that there's a solid bottom of funnel search component, right? So that people who are looking for you because they saw it on a brand awareness level will come and find you. And so in this way, I think this is probably just a good example to illustrate how that funnel should actually work, and thinking about the real user journey, not just by putting people into buckets of awareness, consideration, and conversion, but thinking like, what's the journey through that funnel actually look like based on intent?